Hi guys, it's Nabila. So the thing I love about Spencerial is the gorgeous capital letters, which give so much character to the script. Today I'm going to show a simple 5-step method I've developed to help deconstruct and ultimately execute any capital letter. If you follow me on Instagram, a while back I did 26 Spencerial capitals in 26 days. So this is a method that I developed during that challenge to give myself a methodical approach to being able to do any Spencerial majuscule. How I used to replicate these letters was to see a letter, immediately grab my calligraphy pen, and then kind of haphazardly attempt to replicate something. If it didn't really work out, maybe I would try tracing it. But let's talk about another way. The first step is picking a letter to study. I find it really useful to study historical exemplars so you can understand what contributes to the beauty and then hopefully incorporate that information into your own original letters later, so it's not just copying but rather using it as study material and inspiration. One of my favorite sources for gorgeous Spencerial capitals is the new Spencerial Compendium, which I've previously reviewed and will have a link to. Today I'm going to choose this R here. So there are 4 things that I analyze about each letter. The first thing is how many strokes the letter was written in. And so the way to analyze this is to look at where there is a shade. That means that in that place that's a downstroke, it's where the pen was being pulled down. So here and here we know at least the pen was probably being pulled down. Sometimes people add in these shades afterwards in rare cases, but generally that's how it works. So if I trace the lines, I can try to figure out if this was made in one pen motion or whether there was a pen lift between. So let's trace it. This is all good, no pen lifts. We'll trace it down. And correctly, I'm moving my pen down where there's a shade. Again, I'm moving my pen down where there's a shade. And so it seems like this letter was written in just one pen stroke. The second thing I look at are the ovals. So Spencerial is based on a system of ovals. So ovals play a large part in the grace and harmony of these letters. So let's look at where there are ovals here. So there's an oval here, there's an oval here, there's a larger enclosing oval here, there's a tiny little oval here, there's a larger oval here. If you want to get more thorough, you can look at the angle of these ovals in relation to each other. So now that we've identified the ovals, I like to look at the letter and see how the sizes of these ovals relate to each other. So you can see here with the entrance stroke, it's about half the size of that capital stem. And that's something that I find really common in Spencerial is things will often be half the size or they'll divide something into 2. And then there's one last thing that I look at, how the intersections between different lines are made. So if we look at the intersection here and here, you'll see that it's pretty much at 90 degrees. And so almost any time that 2 lines intersect, it looks the most beautiful when that intersection happens at 90 degrees. So if we look at the rest of these intersections between this line and this line, they're perpendicular to each other as well. If we look at this line and this line, pretty much perpendicular also. This line and this line, pretty much perpendicular also. So when you're drawing the letter, it's actually kind of neat to have that as a rule, because if you're drawing this oval, you go around and you're wondering like where should I, or at what angle should I approach this other line to cut into it, it's probably going to be at 90 degrees. And the last thing I look at is the negative space. Here, the negative space is super even all throughout. So these lines are pretty much parallel. If we look at the negative space of this small oval in relation to the large oval, you'll see that it's the same size negative space all throughout. And this kind of adds a lot of grace and beauty to each letter. Also, if we look at the baseline, which is not drawn here, so I'll just draw it in. If we look at the baseline, we'll see that for this exit stroke, the bottom half of it, the negative space is roughly the same as the negative space on the top half of it. So once I've done the letter analysis, I generally close my eyes and try to imagine it in my head. And if I can't visualize it, it means I probably haven't studied it enough and I go back to looking at it. I think it's important, for me at least, when I'm drawing these letters to know like precisely what's going to happen at every turn, so that when I'm executing I'm not like stuttering or like wondering what comes next. The fourth step for me is just picking up a pencil and trying to teach my arm the muscular movements needed to make the letter. Also, this lets me study the proportions and how stuff relates to each other. This one, for example, I'm not so happy with. It's too heavily weighted to the right, it looks quite imbalanced, so I'll just keep drawing it again and again until I feel comfortable that I understand the letter. Now for the fun part, doing it in ink. With all this preparation, it's usually pretty straightforward to execute the letter. So if you find these kinds of instructional videos helpful, please hit the like button so I know. And if you're interested in calligraphy and penmanship, please subscribe if you'd like to.